What should be Australia's relationship towards China? Chinese? Just read Kevin Rudd's book The Avoidable War: The Dangers of a Catastrophic Conflict Between the US and 11 Jinping's China. He also mentions Australia a lot off through the book. He wrote the book was head of the NYC Asia Society, which made me think how Australia is arguably the Western country most connected to China through geography, international students, immigrants, etc. I think it is in our interests to maintain a non-hostile, hopefully amicable without being a doormat relationship with China, and to advocate amongst Western nations to avoid conflict as much as is possible. I don't think China is likely to start a war, and they have not generally been gung-ho throughout their history. They are more likely to use soft power to advance their interests. Regardless, we need to be prepared for their possible encroachment, and think we should be forging closer ties with the ASEAN nations as a bulwark against a more assertive China. Can definitely see the China supporters in this thread, trying to label the possible invasion of Taiwan as a domestic affair for China. I guess by the logic you probably see Ukraine as part of Russia too, dickhead. Edit: to give some perspective, Singapore became independent in 1965, Ukraine became independent in 1991. Republic of China took control of Taiwan in 1949. Taiwan has been running effectively independently far longer than Singapore or Ukraine. No reason why it shouldn't be recognized as a country by now. Australia teams with Chinese CCP spies. I know because my Chinese students have told me privately that this is why they won't express their views openly in classes, where other Chinese students are present. If we can't buy property in your country, you can't buy in ours. Long term, we need to become more independent from China. The CCP cares only about one thing alone, its own survival at the detriment of everyone, including their own citizens. Slowly move our economy away from China for a first step towards complete non-contact. An authoritarian regime like China becoming the dominant power in the Indo-Pacific is not good for anyone, including Australia. We need to work with our regional partners and allies to ensure this doesn't happen and to maintain regional peace and stability. We should negotiate where we can, but we need to confront and condemn this horrid regime where we must. If we want to avoid a war, showing strength is the way to do it. I think we are doing all right. China is a dictatorship and a joke. Their people are wonderful and kind. We should be treating them as a pariah. They are committing genocide, practicing imperialist expansionism, and they threatened Australia with nuclear attack back in 2021. Until they resolve those problems, we put them in the same basket as North Korea and move our trade elsewhere. Australia is a little frog crossing a stormy river on the back of a scorpion. We need China, but they regard Australia as a cheap source of wheat, meat, and minerals. They have no respect for any other country, as proven by their secret Chinese police stations in Australia and other countries. Our relationship with China has to be a very careful one. As long as they keep their imperialist ambitions in check, free Tibet, and don't invade Taiwan, I don't see why we shouldn't maintain non-hostile relations. But if they do go for Taiwan, they should receive the Russian treatment. I would stay very clear of their Belt and Road initiatives, as it's a debt trap and hands even more infrastructure control to foreign powers. I would also prefer if they weren't trying to erase cultures out of the world, but every mega power has blood on their hands, so we can't exactly exclude them just for that. I think that with things changing so rapidly in China, mainly in terms of their economic strength, whatever policy we adopt needs to be fluid enough to match their changes. Don't trade with communists. The end. Well, too many people are buying those GWM and Haval cars now and directly funding then Chinese slave labor and future war machine. Great work to those Australians who have sold out. China tried to make us bow to their demands by illegally boycotting Australian products. We found alternative markets. We should never again let our economic prosperity be linked to China. China is a dictatorship with an expansionary military policy. They are no friend to Australia. We need to reduce dependency on China. Source goods elsewhere. Spread it out to reduce the risk. In diplomacy, every country should act out of self-interest. Fuck China. My Chinese wife also says fuck China. So, fuck China. Maybe you should ask the Uyghurs how they feel about the CCP. Oh, you can't find any to ask? Because they're actively being genocided by the CCP? I'd be staying as far away from CCP China as humanly possible. We should cut down on Chinese international students sharply. Australia has no reason not to get along with every country. America is always just trying to force people's hand. They are shit stirrers who need conflicts to either sell weapons to or sell offload outdated weapons to, like in the case of Ukraine. That war couldn't have happened at a more convenient time for the US military-industrial complex. Amazing how some things work out. Sure saved them a lot of money. It's weird as hell. If China can stop being a dictatorship, then I think there won't be much of a conflict as what is going on now. Would love to see North Korea mess with China. At least the USA and Western allies can sit back and light a ciggy in the corner. Not friendly. We shouldn't take threats of nuclear war towards our nation lightly. It would be best to just sell them stuff and leave it at that. Disband the Australian military, and tell China if anyone fucks with us, you will no longer be able to get safe baby formula for your children. China doesn't do normal relationships with other countries. Australia just wants trading partners and China not to be a dick to its neighbors. Personally, I say we need to fuck China off completely and go back to manufacturing stuff in-house. For such an anti-bullying oriented country, we really do let ourselves get bullied way too much. Plus it's kinda bats hit that society constantly shits on Russian and North Korean while sucking China off continually. They're most known for doing worse shit than both Russia and North Korea. But cause of greed, we let them basically own the world, so now everyone's their play toy. The CCP are a bag of dicks. Fuck the CCP China virus. If we were righteous and truly about being good people, we should have nothing to do with anything that directly or indirectly benefits the Chinese govt and systems. Lots of what IFS in the comments. The one people forget is, what if, without the USA for protection and keeping the world order, China eventually gobbles Australia up or make it a vassal state? Without the US-led world order that has existed since 1945, wars would be much more commonplace. Europe would probably be on World War V by now. Australia's position should have been to mediate between China and the U.S., not be the lapdog for one side or the other. But Australia has a history of being the world's bitch. Unfortunately, our resources have been sucked dry and we've seen nothing for eye because the U.S. wouldn't let us nationalize them. Not to mention everything else we've fucked up. I've all but given up on this country. It's just become another slightly less shithole. The Great Southland can't be as great as the one it could have been. They are communists. As such, cannot be trusted. Kevin Rudd should not be trusted at all. He has an unhealthy passion for China and is hopefully under watch from ASIO. Out of curiosity, because I won't read it, does the book go into detail on exactly how far down Crud's throat China's dick is? Well, the CCP fucks with us all the time, we fuck with them too. It's how they play, so we play the same way. However, if there were a war with Taiwan, Australia would be on Taiwan's side, because we have agreements with Japan and India. The US is our wartime ally. We have a lot of fifth columnists here in Australia, generational too. They are easy to spot. China is very predictable in unpredictability. We know they act friendly, but when it doesn't suit them, they go to extremes. Pick the US side, but have an open door to China. We should tell them to leave Hong Kong. I love Chinese people, I dislike the Chinese government. My partner Taiwanese Australian says China will take over Australia, and it's you white Australian who will have to put up with a Chinese referendum for vote yes to give you rights.